is Louise Sue. I'm a retired naval captain, and I'm more or less the chair of the Speaker Friends Forums. And I have a small team, and we put these things together. Programs sometimes take up to 6 months to develop. And I'm here today to start off by introducing our speaker for today, Michel Gravel. And I will tell you that I did not know, many of you do, but I did not know of Michel's history until I was at an event and he was receiving the King George Medal. In the course of him receiving the King George Medal, I listened to the narrative and immediately thought, aha, now there's a guy to come and give a presentation. I am sure there's a topic in there somewhere that he would like to present and that we would like to listen to. And so I'm extremely pleased that we were able to kind of wander our way through this and get this into the program, especially in the November timeframe. Just everything about this for us was perfect. So so you've seen his bio as part of the poster, so I'm not going to read that out in detail. I'm just saying to you that sometimes you just never know where a treasure is going to appear. In this particular case, it was this award ceremony. So I'm extremely pleased this afternoon to invite our speaker, Michel Gravel.
Hi, my name is Michel. I'm a roof salesman. I just celebrated 30 years with my company. And today is my first day of the longest holiday I've ever taken. It's 5 weeks till January 3rd. And so this is how I'm celebrating. This is my first day. Over on the left on the table, I just brought in some bragging rights. Those are the 6 books that I've published. I've written 8. 2 are still on my hard drive. Unfortunately, my publisher in France retired, and nobody buys books anymore. So they're going to get done on Amazon. One is in English. It was published by CEF Books here in Ottawa. The other 5 are Isaac Éditions in Normandy in French. People ask me, why did I publish in French? Well, because I speak French, I write in French, and I tried to flog my stuff in Britain and elsewhere in Canada, and I could never find an English publisher. You can look at them, but I have none for sale. And when the first French one came out, I approached the boutique here, the gift shop. I said I published a French book about the Great War, and they said, would you like to carry them? They're in French. It's in French. And the buyer said, Mr. Gravel, French books don't sell here. But they did eventually take 4 of my books, and I'm glad to see they were probably remaindered off because they're not on the shelves anymore. But I had to pay to import them, and then they wanted this hefty discount, and they were probably remaindered, but I'm still proud of them. The presentation we're going to do today is Fred Banting in the Dury Quarry. It's actually just an appendix out of the book on the right, The Battle of Dury. So this is just an appendix. This is just an aside. It's a tangent. But it is, November is Diabetes Awareness Month. So it's appropriate that we talk about Fred Banting. Here he's known as Dr. Banting. In France, they had no idea who he was. Even the Arras chapter of Diabetes France did not know who he was. Now they know who he was, but they refer to him as Capitaine Banting. They found out he was a war hero before they found out he had developed insulin. And it was really a rewarding 12 and a half years I put into this project. Now, let's see. So oops. This is the only part I'm going to read, I think. Sir Frederick Grant Banting was born in Arras, Ontario in 1891. He completed his medical studies on an accelerated program so he could be sent to the front. He enlisted in December 1916. He was posted to England. He had some postings in France. But by the end of August 1918, it's not in his service file, but it's, we know through other means that he was attached as a medical officer of the 44th Canadian Infantry Battalion at the Battle of the Drocourt-Quéant line. September 2nd, 1918. He also, that was the first time really he went into frontline service. Does it matter if I'm in front of this? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And he also was at the front line at the Canal du Nord later in September. He was wounded by shrapnel on September 28, 1918 at a place called Lilac Farm on the other side of the Canal du Nord, but he remained at his post for 16 hours. He was awarded the Military Cross for his bravery. Apparently he treated his own wound. It wasn't shrapnel, it was a shard that hit his right arm. And for fear of amputation, he decided to treat his arm himself. After the war, having no specialized training, none. Other than his accelerated MD course that he took, he nevertheless isolated the insulin hormone in 1922 at the University of Toronto. He shared the Nobel Prize for Medicine for his discovery in 1923 at the tender age of 32. That is still a record for the youngest recipient of this award. He sold a patent for insulin to his university for $1, having been offered $1 million US in 1923 for the patent by a US pharmaceutical company. He called it Wall Street. Wall Street offered me $1 million. And what I didn't know is they also offered him a 10% royalty on all sales.
Wow.
Now, if you imagine in 1923, a house in Toronto was about $3,500. A Model T would have been $500. It was basically like offering you $1 billion today. It was unlimited money. And I have a philosopher friend who helped me, that I hired to consult to see if my history was, my methodology was good in this. And I said, you know, what was he an idiot? Was he a nice guy? What drives a man to do that? And he said he would have been a humanist of the very best kind. He was knighted by the king, and he died in an accidental plane crash out of Gander, Newfoundland, while on a scientific mission for the Allies. He was 49. The legend is that he was working on a formula in his head, and the pilot broke his arm in the crash, and he knew he was dying, and he said, "Write this down," and he dictated the formula that he was working on. I don't know if there was ever issue to that, but this was like a very great man. And we won't talk about his time with the Group of Seven as an artist, but this is about the Dury. This is one day in his career that we're talking about today. So like the presentation deals exclusively with the regimental aid post he operated at Dury on September 2nd and 3rd, 1918. This is the only thing, and I'm not an expert on Banting. I'm an informed tourist on Banting. The only thing I know about is what he did on September 2nd and 3rd, 1918, so I'm not going to pontificate about anything else. So on September 2nd, 1918, apparently Banting appropriated a German field hospital in the small and obscure village of Dury in France. I will explain the battle a little later. I searched for the location of his aid station for 12 and a half years. Special thank you, I wouldn't have done it without François Lepoint and Jean-Marie Des, MSM, who are my men on the ground in France. Glenn knows them very well. And then so does Adam. The first time I heard of the Dury Quarry associated with Fred Banting was when, around 2010, I bought a copy, a very expensive book, 6,000 Canadian Men, which is the official history of the 44th Canadian Infantry Battalion. And I was reading about the Battle of the Drocourt-Quéant line, and specifically the fighting at Dury, and they mentioned that Captain Banting operated a field hospital in the quarry at Dury. Now, I went back to the war diary. They don't mention anything about Banting in the war diary, but by the time this was published in the 30s, Banting was a household name in Canada. I mean, the guy was voted, I think, third greatest Canadian by the CBC. This is not just anybody. So they put him in the book. But when eventually I wrote a book about Dury years later, my friend Jean-Marie said in the draft that I sent him to read, he said, "You don't mention Banting." And I said, "It's just hearsay. I don't want to publish hearsay. I don't have the smoking gun to say that all this is true." And luckily I found the smoking gun before I went to press. In the book, there was a clue. There was this picture of this house here, photo number 3. The roof has been caved in. So we're talking about the Battle of the Drocourt-Quéant line, which was September 2nd, 1918. Obviously, this picture was taken probably shortly after the battle. The building survived, except for the roof. And it says, you can't read it like on the PowerPoint, but they painted, and they whitewashed, Germans did, on the building, the Hout to Everban Pots, which I completely butchered, but it means main aid station. So why would they mention Banting having a field hospital in the quarry and then put a picture of a German main aid station at Dury? But there's no mention of a quarry here, and there's no evidence that this is anywhere near a quarry. So again, that's hearsay. So now I'm just going to explain the battle a little bit. This is what's called the Dury-Villers Road. This is south of the village of Dury. This is the point of furthest advance by the 4th Canadian Division on September 2nd, 1918. There was a desperate battle for this sunken road. The Germans used it as a trench. And up top, you can barely see, you can make out Le Moulin d'Amiens, or Dury Mill. It was a windmill. It was on the highest spot of Mount Dury. Well, Dury's on a ridge. The highest point is called Mount Dury, and that's the windmill. And obviously, they put the windmill at the highest point. Now, I'm going to zoom in on it. This is an illicit photograph taken by a soldier of the 87th Canadian Battalion, likely just after the battle. I say illicit because the Canadians were not allowed to have cameras. But this is what everybody on that part of the front would have seen. It would have been the highest spot. This is the symbol of the battle. And this is the Villers-Dury Road, the sunken road I showed you earlier, but this is a little farther south near the Arras and Cambrai highway. You can see it's a really deep sunken road. The Germans used it as a trench. This is shortly after the battle, and you can see the havoc that was wrought here on September 2nd, 1918. And that's what it looks like today. It's the same place, but my friend Jean-Marie talked to farmers years and years and years ago when he was a teenager, and there were still, I guess I have a pointer. Yeah. Right up here, there were firing steps up there, apparently. I don't know if that's true or not. I didn't find any, but it makes sense. And now, just bear with me. I'm going to give you a very short tour of the village of Dury. Now, Banting, I don't think ever got into the village, but this is one of the main arteries. I forgot the name in the village. This was taken in 1919. You can see the pigeon coop. There's that little tower thing. Surprisingly, compared to all the other villages, Dury had a lot of buildings that survived the bombardment, one of which is the pigeon coop, which was built in the 1850s, so you can still go see it today. And this is the church, just before the war, probably around 1905, I'm guessing. And then you can see the ruins of, well, the church is almost a ruin, just after the fighting. And when the 46 Canadians entered Dury, this is the church they would have seen. Now, this was torn down, and there's a new church now. But what's important to our story, I'm on the Arras-Cambrai Road. It's the highway that runs like a northwest-southeast. to Cambrai. Dury's just north of the road, and I'm gonna bring your attention to the forest there. That's actually the Dury Quarries, and the Dury Quarries, half of them were filled in, the other half are overgrown with trees, and that's where I went to look for Captain Banting's field hospital. This is a Google Maps, Google Earth view of Dury. There's only about 400 people in this village. As you can see, it's not a very big village. I'm going to zoom in to the southwest corner of town. On the right, this is called Dury Wood. It was probably completely wrecked by the end of the day on September 2nd, 1918. And then on the left are the complex of quarries. It was like a cluster of quarries, chalk quarries. And the quarry system was bisected by the Rue de Bapaume, the highway, the road that you see in the blue oval. That was there. Now I'm going to bring attention to, but try to forget it. This little house here will have some significance later on. So there's the trench map, and there's a heavily damaged Dury Wood, and then you have the quarries, and they were 60 feet deep, according to this map here. Now the quarries on the left have been filled in. The quarries on the right are still there, because I snuck into them in 2010, and we weren't allowed to, but it's just full of trees. This is a picture that my friend Francois Lepoint gave me. It's an aerial photograph of the quarries in the 1950s. In the white square, these quarries still exist, but they're not overgrown yet. And you can see the chalk come through. They were quarrying chalk. So I'm going to explain the battle for you. On September 2nd, 1918, the Canadian Corps attacked along the Arras and Cambrai road. This here is the Arras and Cambrai road. So remember when I took a picture of the forests? I pulled my car over about here so that I could see to the northeast. So anyway, the 1st Canadian Division was on the right, the 4th Canadian and the 4th British Divisions were on the left. To capture Mount Dury was the responsibility of 4th Canadian Division and the mostly forgotten effort by the 4th British Division. This is the quarry that that's where I'm going to go look for Banting's field hospital. On the left, the 4th Division, the 4th British Division only had they had 2 assault battalions, the 2nd Essex and a battalion of the King's Own. They were attacking north of Dury. The 10th Canadian Brigade of the 4th Canadian Division had 2 battalions in line, the 50th and the 47th. The 12th Canadian Division, the 12th Canadian Brigade of the 4th Canadian Division, they went in with 3 battalions. Now each brigade in the British Army at this point, there were 3 battalions. The Canadians, each brigade had 4 battalions. One side, I don't know, they went with two up front and 3 up front on the left and right. Anyway, on the right was the 1st Canadian Division. They were going towards Villers and Cagnicourt. And an interesting thing here that's covered in my book is the independent force of Raymond Brutnow. It was a motorized force of Canadian and British armored cars, motorized machine gun units, and cavalry cyclists. And that's a really interesting story, but it's beyond the scope.
What's the scale on this map?
Oh, well, remind me, a square on a trench map, is it 1,000 yards? Yeah, I think this is I believe, this is a kilometer, I think. And from from here, I took a picture at dawn up here one morning. I went for a walk. And from here to here, you can see the whole advance to the ridge. There were, by the end of the day, 10,000 infantrymen and machine gunners committed, not counting all the other services, to take this ridge. It was like, you have to read my book, but that's not Banting, really had nothing to do with that.
Okay, thank you.
So to take Dury, the 10th Canadian Infantry Brigade, as we mentioned, had 2 other battalions. The 46th Battalion was tasked to come in to take Dury and reach the red line, the number 11 that you see there. And by the way, if you see the number 4, that's the Dury-Villers Road, where it gets really deep. And 5 is where the mill would have been. So everybody on that front would have seen the mill. And then the Banting's 44th Battalion was supposed to squeeze between the Essex and the 50th north of town, not go through the village, probably for them to not, I'm assuming it's for them to not get disorganized. And they were to push to the second objective, which was Raycourt. Unfortunately, they failed. And in fact, the second objective was Raycourt. The third objective, they were supposed to cross the canal and take a place called Oisy-le-Verger, which looks a lot like Monchy-le-Parc, but not as famous. And then the fourth objective was a cavalry objective. They were supposed to take Cambrai, and they failed. The Canadians and the British never got past the red line. It was like Norm Christie said, at the end of the day, the Canadians and the Germans were in a staring contest, and the Germans blinked. That's how we won. It was so close. It was one of the closest victories ever. And you know, about 900 Canadians died here, just in the 4th Division front. Don't forget the 1st Division. I read 35 war diaries relating to this battle. I read 3 memoirs, 1 unpublished. I read 13 German regimental histories that I had translated, and nobody talks about the fighting for the quarry, and the quarry was 60 feet deep. I know it was likely the 47th Battalion that secured it. That was because it was, they don't even mention it as an objective, but it was within the boundaries that they would have been assigned. And I know for a fact that during the day they set up their battalion headquarters in the quarry. So we'll never know. It's amazing how much stuff we've lost. Like, did they have to ferret the Germans out, or did the Germans pull out? We'll probably never know, because I looked, you know, and we'll never know. So my friend Jean-Marie found this. This is from the Imperial War Museum. It says quarry at Dury, and it fits the description, 60 feet deep. So that's why I'm wondering, was there fighting in here? And if I were to redo this as a movie, I would have the, you know, between the director and the screenplay, the writer, would have to make a decision on like what happened in this quarry. We'll really never know. We can't ask anybody. But I started thinking about finding this in 2010, but it wasn't until 2022 that online I bought these 2 cards, German postcards, and they say Quarry bei Dury. So I sent them to my friend. Look, it's a 60-foot deep quarry. Look at that house there. We'll talk about that soon. I sent it to my friend Jean-Marie, and I said, do you think this is Dury? It says it's Dury, but we can't compare it with anything. So my interest was piqued. But then Jean-Marie's friend, François Lepoint, says, I know a guy who has a card that'll help you, and it was this one. And he said, this is Dury. there's the quarry. You can see the chalk. And you see there's some outbuildings, and then there's this mysterious house. And they go, wow, well, we're getting somewhere now. And I compared the two. And this is the picture from the 44th Battalion book. So I had proof that the German hospital was in the quarry. So I went on, like I can't fly there every weekend to track down every lead, but we had this wonderful thing called Street View. And these buildings would not have been there in 1918, but if you look at this one, and I go, wow, wait a minute. On the right, there's still a quarry there, but it's unused and it's full of trees. And there's this house that looks suspicious. And there it is. This is I haven't said Banting yet. I said this is the German hospital. And the lean-to even has been renovated, but it's still there. So then I looked at, I zoomed in on this. This has the same shutters, but this has 3 windows. This has 2. So is it the same building? Who knows? So this was, when I first did this presentation, I ended here. Is this the right house? Well, the 44th Battalion official history states that Banting set up his aid station in the quarry. It also included a photo of a German field hospital at Dury, which we have proved was in the quarry. It stands to reason that Banting appropriated a perfectly good German aid station. Is this significant? Well, any find like this is cool, but I told my friends in France that finding Banting's aid station is like them finding Louis Pasteur's aid station, had he found one. Had he had one, let's say the War of 1870. So I did a part 2, because I contacted Banting House in London, did some more research, and so I'll give you the conclusive proof. Is this German aid post the one used by Fred Banting on September 2nd and 3rd, 1918? Is this it? There's Fred Banting as a young captain, or I guess he's a captain here in the Army Medical Corps. This is him in 1940 or 41 as a major before he died. So we've got a letter, the journal of Fred Banting himself from the museum in London, and he talks about September 2nd, 1918. And he says, in his own words, the barrage was terrific on both sides. I went over the top with the battalion. We passed through heavy shell fire in a gas valley. I dressed a few in a sunken road, this is important, west of Dury, then went on to Dury. By this time, the battalion was out of sight. Sniping and shells prevented further progress, which is true. So I returned to the southwest corner of Dury to the quarries and established his regimental aid post in a Hun dressing station, using the dressings and the Red Cross flag. And I would give my left arm today for that flag. I collect flags. The wounded poured in and kept 18 stretcher bearers and 20 to 30 Huns carrying out. A couple of nice heinies worked around all day. One said, "La guerre est finie pour moi." From about 11 a.m. till 10 p.m., I got a little sleep during the night, but had to wear a gas mask for about 4 hours. So that proves, that's the smoking gun. That was Dr. Banting's hospital. But it's really kind of, oh, sorry, the letters are in white, they shouldn't be. This is the map taken out of the 44th Battalion history. And this is their advance from Haucourt. See, he jumped off at a place called Haucourt, right here. There's Dury. And you remember they were going to the north of Dury. And he says he dressed some people in a sunken road on the way, and there's only one sunken road. It's here, right there, and it's a dead end, right here. So he would have treated people, and anyway, this is the road in March of 2 years ago. You can see here he would have treated some wounded according to his letter. It's the only place it could be that this happened, on the way to Dury. And then there's the quarries. There's the German field hospital, right there. These are the quarries that are still extant. They're full of trees. But the quarries here have been filled in. Right there. You can see how they're filled in. Well, this is the photo of those filled in quarries, and you can see the house up there. And look at the outhouses, the service buildings. It's them. So this is the southern elevation. The Germans were in the quarry was facing the northern elevation. The northern elevation has 3 windows. Southern elevation has 2 windows. And that's what it looks like today. That's the quarry on the right, where the Germans took pictures. And that's the quarry on the left, which still exists, but it's full of trees. And now that you're totally confused, let me recap. There's Dr. Banting's hospital. There's the quarries that are filled in. The Germans were standing like this quarry. The photographer was standing at this arrow when he took the picture, except that he was 60 feet down, so the house looks up. And I suspect that house was probably the owner of the quarry, or maybe the quarry office, because it's the only isolated house there was. The French never go out, like here we'll have farms on a concession somewhere. In that part of France, everybody lives in tightly knit into the village. So it had to have been the quarry office. So there it is. And I got to go. And the first time I went, we were like, you never go in without an invitation, and there was a gate. But the second time I went, and believe you me not, they had just bought the house a month before, and they renovated the second floor as an Airbnb, and they were looking for a name for their Airbnb, and they called it La Salle Banting, and you can rent it on, if you're visiting the battlefield. It's a beautiful little apartment. This is the only elevation. This is the east elevation. This is what it looks like today. We don't have a contemporary photograph of this, but there it is. This is La Salle Banting, and they've decorated all with Banting's achievements, his paintings, his cover of Time magazine, information. They have a binder about Banting, because people are asking, why is it called the Banting Room? So we helped them develop. I sent a whole bunch of pictures, and they chose what they wanted, and the owner offered to pay for the framing. But that's not it. In 2023, there was a joint memorial at Dury. On September 2nd, 1918, there were 7 Victoria Crosses earned by the Canadian Corps. And so on the right is a memorial to the 7 Victoria Crosses. On the left is a memorial to Fred Banting's time in Dury. And it says, I didn't write it, but I just think it's so simple. Discoverer of insulin and laureate of the 1923 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. During the fighting for Dury on September 2nd, 1918, he deployed a dressing station along this road where he courageously treated the wounded, I remember. And this November 11th, while this was happening, they were renovating their community center. And November 11th, they named it La Salle Frederick Banting. And this is these guys here are my posse. This guy's from Veterans Affairs. It's funny they had money to send him and not me. This was a gendarme. Oh, this is a federal building. I shouldn't make jokes like that. And the mayor is avid fan of the Great War. His name is Mac Campbell. His grandfather was a stretcher bearer, 51st Highland Division, went back to France as a gardener with the War Graves Commission. His son, he married a French woman, like you should. His son became a gardener as well and was deported in 1940. And it's funny, his name is Mac Campbell, and he speaks English a little bit like that, you know. But he tries really hard, and they're so delighted to have discovered the story. Like, I had nothing to do with this. This is just maybe seeds I planted, but they brought this to fruition. They're just so excited to have connected with his story. And it was an easy sell for me because there's tons of memorials to the First World War, but Fred Banting is bigger than that. He was a humanitarian, an artist, and he made the lives of people better, even though apparently his father-in-law didn't like him. Now, this is another story. His next field hospital was on September 28, 1918, during the fighting for Cambrai. It was at a place called Lilac Farm. Take a bow, Adam. He found it. And in this courtyard, this is where Banting would have earned his military cross. That's another story. I'm just talking about Dury. This is Banting House in London. And I have to tell you a personal story. When I went into the quarry in 2010, one of my best friends in high school, Mark Hagan, was a type 1 diabetic since the age of 8. And I hadn't talked to him in 5 years. And he's the one that told me about Banting years ago, because he used to go to a summer camp called Camp Banting for diabetic kids. And I was in the quarry, and I didn't know where exactly the hospital was, but then I said, I gotta call Mark and tell him how close I got. And 2 days later, I was somewhere else in France, and my ex was going through Facebook. Mark, while I was in the quarry, was dead from diabetic coma. The exact moment. And I knew it was destined I'd find it. That's it. I said everything I know, so.